Okay, hello and welcome to Startup Business Q&A episode 130, which means it's 2.5 years today since we started the first one. Thank you everyone who's joining, who's jumping in to ask questions today. Thank you everyone who's made this happen all this time. And I'll just wait for a few people to come online. And I just wanted to say it's an absolute pleasure. If you're watching on Instagram, I started probably about 60, 70 weeks ago, 50 weeks or so ago on YouTube as well. But it is 2.5 years of doing this live show every single week. So thank you so much everyone for watching. I'm just gonna share a little bit here as well. But look, it's been a hell of a ride. And I did I actually did the maths recently. I worked on the basis that each episode, so each show each week, I'm doing something in the region of 8 questions. Sometimes it's like 10 or 12, sometimes it's like 6. But today it means that, well, it's not just because of today, it would have been about 4 or 5 weeks ago. But if you do the maths, 130 times 8 questions on average, we're looking at something in the region of over 1,000 questions, like 1,040, I think it is. So all that is because purely you lot decide to show up and ask questions. No one ever bothered, then I wouldn't be doing it. Simple as that. I'm thrilled to be doing this. It's not even a full year anniversary, but it just feels like quite a milestone, 2.5 years. So what I did was yesterday I checked out, I literally scrolled all the way back to episode 1. It is still out there. If you go onto Facebook and look, then episode 1 is still there. You've got to go all the way back 2.5 years. And, you know, I was wearing stupid glasses. I don't know, I had the angle off. And I think the first show, the first 6 minutes, if I remember right, I actually had the camera the wrong way around. I hadn't rotated it by accident. And I realized that I was at 90 degrees. So, you know, techie stuff goes wrong. But even when I've been unconscious, because since then I've had 3 operations. One of them was major surgery. But what's interesting is that since then I've had, you know, even those instances, there's at least been something produced. So there's been, I would say, probably on one hand, I can count the number of times when I've technically not been able to make it. There's still a show that's happened. Now, that's not a brag. It's just proving the point that with a little bit of consistency, which is all this really is, a tiny bit of consistency, you can, over time, suddenly be in a point where you've done this many shows. But honestly, the stars are you guys. I know it sounds cliche, but you really are, because otherwise I'm just talking at a few cameras and not really doing much. So thank you very much, everyone, for making it happen. Big week, therefore. So episode 130, we're covering objective setting. Hello, Melvin. Hello, Diana. Hello, Michael. Hello, Bonsai. Hello, Devon as well. Hello, Alec. Hello, Vizio Zoo. That's a cool name. And let me know if you are where you're based, but also if you're hashtag Team Live or hashtag Team Replay watching later. I want to send you all a message to say thank you. So this week's a big one because back in May last year, I remember saying, right, I'm going to roll out the new events. This is going to happen. I remember in May last year, not only did I say this is going to happen, I showed you I was serious about it. I closed my 2 Taekwondo schools to make way for it. July was our inaugural event in London. Then I had 6 events, kind of, including Kurt's, well, although it wasn't my event, it was his. And now this week, so Thursday, we are having Entrepreneur Business Live USA. So we're doing our New York event as well. And very, very soon, it should be later today, if not this week, I'll be able to confirm the dates of the next London event, which will be probably mid-February. And then there's some exciting things ahead. So Barcelona is planned and so on as well. So thanks so much for that. Morning, everyone. Hashtag Team Live, if you can watch this one. If you have a question about objective setting, then please do ask it in the comments. Andres, good to see you here, Mr. Consistency every week. And I say it's about being consistent, right? 130 episodes means over 1,000 questions on the basis of 8 questions per episode answered or specifically asked by you lot. So thank you so much for doing that. So Erica, good to see you as well on Facebook. It's been a long time. We should catch up. Carolina, I'll see you on Thursday. And nice to see you as well, Michael. I liked your live show in the Entrepreneur Business Club last week. So let's get into the questions. First one from Adam Mosley. You personally, Richard, how do you decide which objectives are the most important which should take up more of your time. So I think the way to do this is to look more about what the point of the objective is. And so I have the CEL approach. The CEL approach is really, I have to shout out here, this is one of the greatest names ever. Pork Chop Singularity is an amazing name on Instagram. Thank you very much for joining us. So great name. So the CEL approach is how I set my objectives each day. C stands for customer or client acquisition or cash flow, so making money, closing stuff. That comes first. The second thing is on essentials or essential work. And then the last thing, the third thing is on lines of work or lines of focus. That's the things, generally speaking, I'm moving towards. So, for instance, building out this events business is something that is a more of a broader set of objectives. Being clear about our terms here, an objective is something like a task that allows you to step in the direction of a goal or outcome you're after. So an objective is one of those things you have to do to get. So for instance, if I want to go on a long car journey and I need to fill the car with petrol first, the goal is to go on the journey or to complete the journey, but an objective first is to get some petrol. You see, this is one of the steps. So this is very important because the C and the L parts, so cash flow, customer acquisition, and the essential things, and they're in that order, by the way. In a day, I would do cash flow and customer closing first, and then essential things second. You might think that doesn't make sense to do essential things second, but it means that you're always putting more oxygen into the company that way. So they are short-term things, and then the longer-term things that are more aligned with, objectives that are more aligned with your outcomes and goals. They are the things that I do after that. So that's simply how I set them. Which should take up more of your time? Well, I think ebb and flow with this, Adam. I think that some tasks that make you £1,000 or pounds because you're in the UK might take you 5 minutes, whereas other things that make you far less might take longer. It depends what they are, really, and that doesn't matter too much, because the idea with these points is that the outcome is what matters, not how long those tasks take. You see what I mean? The outcome is to make something big happen, but the objectives to get there are very small. Well, that doesn't matter in the slightest. It's about the outcome, not a feeling that you've done more work or less, if you see what I mean. So I want to shout out to a big shout out to my people at the station at Coffee Roos, who just joined us on Instagram. Coffee Roos, could you put a little link to your your website, by the way? I'm a big fan of your coffee. Thanks very much for looking after me. I will see you tomorrow in the morning. And these guys are awesome at making coffee. For ages at our train station, there was terrible coffee, which is basically hot milk, right? If you guys have tried it. But these guys came, this is a perfect example of being disruptive, by the way. In our station, just a little aside here, in our station, there are 2 terrible coffee places, okay? So these two places, they'll make the kind of whipped up warm milk that you kind of feed a baby and call it coffee. What they've done is they camped out outside the front door of the station, so you have to pass it to get in the station. Plus they serve decent coffee from Monmouth, one of my favorite brands, and so as a result they're being disruptive because they're in the way of everyone else going, the foot traffic going to the other places, but also awesome coffee. So people like me who are enthusiasts really appreciate it. So I'll see you tomorrow in the freezing cold at about 10 to 7. Thanks so much for joining us. A little side, I should get commission, right, for doing this. Anyway, just now that we're warming up and more people are coming in, I just want to say hi to you all. And again, give me a love or a heart or a thumbs up if you've been to more than 5 of these startup business Q&As. I want you to tell me how many do you think you've been to. It'd be interesting to see this, and maybe write in the comments as well, how many of these startup business live shows have you been to? Do you think? How many have you watched? If you've been to every one, it's 130. So for some of you, I know it will be easier to work out the number that you possibly missed, but that's 2.5 years of huge love. So thanks very much. In a way, I'm a bit gutted that the Entrepreneur Business Live event in New York we're doing on Thursday isn't on a Monday, because that would be amazing to have that live as well. But needless to say, if you are in our Entrepreneur Business group on Facebook, so you can literally just search for it and you'll find it. If you join that, you'll be able to watch the live stream of the event in New York on Thursday. Devon Scott, 70. Yeah, I reckon I think more than 30 without a question. You come to a lot of them. So it'd be interesting to see how many of you been to several. If this is your first one, then thank you so much for tuning in. Where the hell have you been? It's been every single week at this time we're running the live Q&A with your questions. So let's go on to the next one from Daniel Nunez. You've actually asked 3, so I'm going to work through these today. How does one delegate objectives to our partners and potential clients to encourage community growth? So this is interesting because a lot of people, this isn't necessarily you, Daniel, but a lot of people will take Michael Getty, to answer your question. If you want to see a link to the coffee, you need to go to the Instagram stream right now on b.richard.moore, or it's Coffee Roos, as in a kangaroo. You'll see it there. But anyway, I'm digressing massively. What I want to make clear is that a lot of people work the wrong way round, in my opinion, to kind of recruit keenness on the part of people who are going to work with you. So if you have a team of people and those are told or delegated a task, they tend to go do it because that's something they need to do. But I feel there's a better way of doing things, which is rather than the classic way of working, which is do things for me and then I will pay you. I think it should be done another way round, which is let me do things for you and then you will want to help us. And so be value-led first. And in fact, I would go, Daniel, as far as to say recruit in a value-led system first. So recruit through value. What I mean there is recruit through helping someone. Recruit doesn't necessarily mean they know they're being recruited. It means just help people a lot, all the time. And then when it comes to a point when you need something, you're in a great position to ask. Some people, it sounds really cynical, but some people call this a value debt. It's a horrible term, but it's actually a really good way of describing it. If you create a sense emotionally on the part of the other person of being in debt to you in terms of value, okay, you actually move to a really good place because it's good debt. It's like you've been helping them out. There's a sense of I want to help you back. And you know if you're helping someone and giving good value because they genuinely want to help you. And that manifests, by the way, in the form of a cue or a compliment that, you're helping them. If that's the case, you're in a wonderful place now, Daniel, to actually delegate objectives to people and encourage community growth. Because you're delegating a task or an objective to a set of people who are bought into you because you've done so much for them to begin with, they're going to naturally move in your direction. They're going to lean in, they're going to collaborate, and they're going to take on that task with huge receptivity, as opposed to, it's crazy, sometimes people who run at tasks for you might be paid 0. They're just doing it because they love to help, compared with people who are bored and don't want to do it, but they know they have to because they get paid. So they get their money, but they really don't want to do it. It's stunning, the difference in that. And it's not always money that's the motivator. In fact, if they're bought into the story or bought in because of that sense of a value debt, that really helps a lot. So I hope that helps. Comment here on Facebook from Michael Getty. I mostly have to watch after end of day due to being out doing the work thing, not working today, so I get to watch live. Hello then, Michael Getty. And also hello, Russ. Nice to see someone here from the UK as well. So Team Live with Russ Avery as well. And shout out to you. Congrats on your first live event last week over at Farnham down here in the UK. So next question from Daniel. Hopefully that helps, by the way. That's the way I look at it. Remember that if there's a value debt, then not only will the tasks be completed, but they'll be shared. There'll be good feeling behind it as well. And that goes a long way. The next question from you is, Richard, how do you create objectives that encourage teamwork and collaboration versus competition? So kind of along the same lines, but let's just be clear. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes competition is a good thing. I ran teams for years. I think the first time I managed a team was 2004. So gosh, it's getting on 15 years. It wasn't at the start of the year. So it was 14 and a bit years ago. And this was a sales team, and I've managed teams throughout that period of time, and they've been operational as well as sales. And I think what's fascinating is that with the right people, competition can be amazing leverage. And it can be fun competition, not negative, not that person's better than you kind of competition, but more of a, who's going to get the best result, or, making some kind of an incentive for people. I remember once a Christmas incentive I ran, and it was October, so the top of the quarter. And I remember thinking, right, I've got 3 months to go. And I said to them all, like, you've got, I think it was something like £100 each. So it's like a team of like 8 or whatever. I said, you've got £100 each. And you, by the end of the week, or end of the day or whatever it was, need to tell me which Christmas present I'm buying you for £100. And the only rule is that it has to be something stupid you wouldn't spend £100 on. And so people look, these are grown adults, right? But they were coming up with things like a remote controlled airplane, a scale electric set, things like that. So really absurd toys, basically, and everyone wanted to be a child again. And that was all calculated based on how much money we'd make. And the objective was, if you hit this target, you get your present. If you hit this target, then you get your present early and things like that. And so I remember it was a few weeks before Christmas, I had a guy on my team flying a remote control airplane around the office. And it was wonderful because it did 2 things. Firstly, it got the team really bought in, so they're getting their gifts. And secondly, other people were like, why am I on that team? I want to be on that team. So it's really funny for kind of notoriety as well. So competition was wonderful. And it was all like competing against each other to get their gift first because they wanted to sit around playing with their toys down. So that helped a lot. But let's answer your question directly. I think one way to encourage teamwork, and it doesn't have to come from you, you see, is encourage them to collaborate in how they come up with how they're going to do it. One problem, I think, with delegating things is that there's too much of an onus on here's what you have to do to get to this outcome. Sure, you're there as a guide, but what I find is really stimulating. If you've got good people, so intelligent people who've got lateral thought in their head, what you do is you say, not here's what I want you to do, it's here's the outcome I'd like you to complete. So, for instance, if I said to someone, I'd like you to get me a YouTube channel that no, it's a bad example. I'd like you to make me a car. Then what I'm asking is, it's the car that's the outcome, not what to do along the way. And if you recruit intelligent enough people, they work those things out. So you sometimes can create the best objectives by not creating them and saying, why don't you guys come up with them? And remembering that an objective is like a stepping stone or a milestone on the steps in the direction of the outcome or the goal in the end. You might say to them, do you know what? There's probably 5 or 6 steps here. Why don't you think about what they are, what they would look like? And it's typically the case that these people will come up with the same answer that you would otherwise give them, but now they own it. And they own it because they come up with it themselves. And I think that good management and delegation can often come down to a sense of collaborating as opposed to point and tell. And I think everyone likes to point and tell, as in to say, right, you do this, you do that, because that feeling of power is marvelous. But it's better to get down with people and say, right, guys, this is where we need to be. What do you think the next steps are? Because what happens if you're always telling people what to do is you're moving to a dangerous place, and that place is called dependency. If you move to dependency, you can get to a space where people don't think because they are conditioned that you will think for them. So it's an important way to do things. Michael Getty's added here a really important point. Delegation is a strong show of trust in the abilities of your team. Remember that it doesn't matter typically, as long as it's ethical and within the rule, the lines of the law. It doesn't actually matter how, typically, for most tasks, it doesn't matter how the outcome is arrived. What matters is that the outcome is arrived upon, and that's it. Okay, so if you're trying to hit a sales target and you've always done it way one, and you want to hit a sales target and you say, go do it your way, and the team comes up with way 2, well then good for them. It doesn't matter because no one cares. What matters is the outcome. That's the way to look at it. That's my strong opinion. And it's not just because that means less work for you or less involvement, because that's obviously a good thing. It's specifically because that set of people will own it. And as we say here, it creates a strong sense of teamwork and collaboration. Okay, goals over tasks. Absolutely right, Devon. You need to be there on hand. You need to be there. When I visited Facebook last month, about a month ago, and I had a tour. And I was speaking to one of the amazing developers there. His startup had been bought by Facebook. He was working there. And one thing that stood out was he said, what Facebook do is they say, here are overarching sense of direction. Here's kind of our end goal. And within that, you do it the way you want. Our job as a business to support you is to give you all the resource you could possibly think. So if you need desks, if you need meeting rooms, if you need X, if you need Y, you got it. It's yours. You just hit the goal. And so you do it the way you want. And I really like that approach. I think it treats people like grown-ups. And it's stunning how creative people can be when they're allowed to be. But the alternative is a really stifling approach. So it's an interesting one, delegation. I found that when you recruit the right people and you motivate them in the right way, you can get so much from them. The hardest part actually is letting go of the fact that it's not going to be done the way that you might have intuitively done it. And that doesn't matter if the goal is achieved. If I said to my team, I want you to go make £1 million this month, and they go and make £1 million this month, that's the goal I'm after. It might not be the way I did it. I would have done it rather, but what am I asking for? Am I asking for emulation of my approach, or am I asking for an outcome? And the outcome, surely the more important thing, okay? Unless, of course, there's a set process, in which case I get it. And the cookie cutter approach to certain things does make sense. Just shout out to everyone here. So thanks so much, everyone who's watching right now. Episode 130, so it's 2.5 years this week since we started this. If you desperately have an urge to do it, you can go to the videos on my Facebook page, and you can scroll all the way back. 2.5 years ago, you'll see the first video. And yeah, I mean, it was me answering questions, and it was fun because the first 6 minutes of me at 90 degrees, I'd forgotten to select rotate, so I flipped that up and we carried on, and it was just showed up every week since then. So it's nothing special; it's just doing it every week, and it's always been good fun to do that. So the objection setting theme today means that you can ask any question you like around that subject area. And let's get into a couple more questions. One here from Bernadette Judd. Which isn't entirely relevant to this week, but I thought I'd answer anyway. Richard, I love your tips on creating a content plan for a solopreneur who is starting up. Like, practically, how do we get a basic structure and some topics in so that it is plug and play for a while? So there's two things to look at here. One thing is that it's a solopreneur starting out. This is a startup business Q&A, okay? But this is someone just starting out on their own. The second thing is that we're looking at a content plan. Now, content plans are wise, but content plans are also very dangerous. They're very dangerous because they stifle the most important thing that startups need, and they condition against doing that one thing. And that one thing is taking action, massive, outrageous amounts of action to focus on actually getting results and essentially oxygen, so cash in the door and customers. If you're the kind of business that requires a viable product to sell, well, then you should be all in on action on building that out first and then getting it to market as soon as you can. The downside of content plans, okay, firstly, the upside, let's do it right around. The upside of a content plan is you have a sense of structure, you have a sense of what's coming next. It takes the thinking out of that moment when you don't have to when you don't have the energy to think of what I need to do today. It's nothing better than going, oh, it's Tuesday, so I have to do, X, Y, and Z is in my content plan. I will do a value tip, I will do a quick vlog, and I will do a blog today. They're the three things I decided on. Some elements it's nice to take the thinking out of it. Apart from certain campaigns, it is wise to be a little bit more in the moment rather than, okay, I'm going to plan 2 weeks ahead or something like that. So my advice, especially to a solopreneur who's just starting out, Bernadette, is to not overthink it. So here's what I would do. I would say, set yourself the task of this is your kind of 3 steps. Step 1 is, which platforms am I using? Step 2 is, how many times a day will I post on each of those platforms and when? Because that's an important consideration. You don't want people tucked up in bed when you're trying to get on top of their news feed, right? And then thirdly, what types of posts will I provide on each one? So for instance, I might say for task 1, I will be posting on Twitter and on Facebook. Secondly, I might say I'm going to post on Facebook twice a day or 3 times a day, and on Twitter 5 times a day. And then thirdly, I'll say I'll post these 3 types of content on Facebook, and obviously tweets I'll do, with an image or video or share, whatever it is, 5 times a day, and I'll set the time. Other than that, personally, I wouldn't do much more thinking, because you should be taking so much action at the start as a solopreneur, what you should be doing is having so much engagement with on the field that there's plenty to talk about. And that's what you should be documenting. As we all know, certainly in 2019, strong marketing starts with documenting the climb. That's what people are going to buy into. We're very, very, very wise to focus on, here's what I've done today. And if you look at my Instagram stories, for example, tomorrow will be a good example. Once I finish with the client, I share stuff that I did, not specifics that are sensitive, but I'll say, this is something that came up. Here's how we handled it, and here's the lesson. So it's interesting sharing that kind of thing. Later in the week, I'll be sharing when I'm in New York and some of the meetings I have and things like that. And doing it that way means that you're building content based on what's happening throughout the day. I don't ever sit down and map out what stuff I'm going to cover for the month ahead, because it's too much time thinking about things in the future that might not get around to be happening because I have other things to do. Maybe I would plan a couple of days ahead, but content shouldn't take that long. And what I mean by this is even the things that take the longest, so production on a video, it's an hour. Get the phone, record it, it's 1.5 minutes, download it, do the captions, subtitle takes me 5 minutes. Then stick it into Filmora, add a bit of text, maybe a filter, download and post. The time, if you're doing social, should be more spent, Bernadette, around the community that starts showing interest in your content, okay? Content plan should be, decide when I'm gonna post, set a schedule, so each day of the week, maybe you have a theme or something like that, just to kind of give you something to remember, but don't plan any more than that. And then the rest of the content plan is massively leaning towards engaging with the people who are showing an interest in your plan, in your content. It's as simple as that. So if someone is writing remember, if you're just starting out, if someone's writing a comment, if someone's giving you a like or something like that, anything towards you, you need to give them a huge amount of interest. Send them a DM. Thanks so much for that. It's really kind of you. Even if, if it's on LinkedIn, you saw that someone looked at your profile, so send them a message. Thanks so much for checking out my profile. I saw you I did this morning, actually. I always still do this stuff. I saw you looked at my profile. Thanks so much. I saw you also do this. It was a mutual organization we're part of. Why wouldn't you do that? That's what you should be spending most of your time in. So just as an idea, and I don't know if any of you guys have this as what you do as well, but as an idea, maybe set for each day of the week a different theme. So you could do, like, if you're desperate, you could do like a motivation Monday. You could do like a sales tip Tuesday, marketing Wednesday. I don't know, I'm making up as I go on, but stuff like that would mean it's something different each day. Just make sure you switch up the types of content. But I said this once to someone months ago, I remember them saying, but the problem is, this is the problem a lot of people say, I don't have things to talk about. I've got no inspiration. What that suggests is you're not doing enough each day. And that's not content stuff, it's work on your business. You should be focusing on your business as much as possible to generate action around building it out and getting results. Because if you can do that, you now have things to talk about. The mistake a lot of solopreneurs make is they spend so much time on the social channels, which is like your radio speaker. It allows you to broadcast what you're up to. You spend so much time on that, you're not actually doing enough to have stuff to talk about on social. You see what I mean? So instead, it's minimizing that time on social, other than when you're posting and engaging a huge amount more with people. And the focus is much more on actually taking action. So now you have stuff to talk about. So if that makes sense. So you're sharing as you go, as opposed to focusing on the content and trying to kind of think of things out of thin air. That would be my suggestion. But great question, really, really good. Hi to everyone who's jumping in. So many different names popping up all the time. So Melvin, Leonardo, Peter, Michael, Juice, Russ, Josu, Haz is here as well. Nice to see you all, and thanks for the nice messages. There's a message here from Michael. I run the kind of business where I don't want to have to stand over people. Time is a factor in what I do, so having a team that can step out of the truck, look and see what needs to be done and go do it, that's where Devon's wisdom comes into play. Goals over tasks and training over direction. Totally right. And some of the best people who have worked with me are the ones who they tend to say, oh, by the way, just so you know, there was a problem and I fixed it, rather than, Richard, there's a problem, what do we do? And what's nice is, what I usually do when I kind of onboard someone or start working with someone, and certainly when I give them a task, is as much as possible, I say, I really want you to own this. So Mona, for example, who's an amazing person looking after a lot of my content and things like the newsletter that's coming out today, she just goes and does it. And if there's something up, she'll fix it rather than wait for and defer to me. I mean, very rarely would there be something that I simply can't, I can't decide upon. So she'll just go and make a decision on her own. And if it was like really difficult to make it, she wouldn't. But that's down to good recruitment. Let's be clear. It's important to get that thing right. Another point here from Karolina Mankowski. A lot of people assume that nobody cares about certain content you're putting out, but there is always somebody that is reading and helping, and it's helping them. Don't make assumptions. Yeah, and I think, any engagement, Karolina, if we take the minimal engagement level being a like, then you got comment, share, DM, or whatever else. I think that all of that together is the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that, you've got hundreds of views usually, and there are people who have watched it or looked at it or taken it in or consumed it in some way, but they don't reach out and like or something like that. So I really think you need to remember, if someone's decided to even just give you a like, it's not like, oh, I only got a like from that person. That's quite a step emotionally to bother to do that. So you need to go give them some gratitude. Again, if you're very much at the start, if you're a solopreneur starting up, this stuff is important because they're the people you'll warm up who potentially become your leads or your advocates or your, those that are going to evangelize for you, or of course, people who might end up working with you, you never know. If there are any more questions, let me know. But otherwise, I'll answer one more question, just to check in YouTube too. And before I do, let us know if you're listening live, so #team live or #team replay. And I'll finish up here with a couple more questions. We've got one again from Daniel Nunez. If the objective is to create an offer that surpasses the client's expectations, how do you effectively lead them without micromanaging or burning yourself out? I think what you're saying here is, if the objective is to create an offer that exceeds client expectations, how do you lead the team in order to do that? I think without burning out and like going over the top. I think what you have to do is, at the start, Daniel, is be really clear with yourself and with the team, right? What are the client's expectations? What have they signed up for? What are they expecting to get from us? If it's A, B, and C, now we've actually defined what it is that this client is expecting. Now we need to say to ourselves, what would exceeding expectations look like? Well, as well as A, B, and C, it would be D and E. Now is the important part. Now we have defined what exceeding expectations are. Exceeding expectations isn't always the intangible, like running around headlessly being busy for someone, because that is where burnout might occur. What it is saying, what specific tasks, so use SMART goals here, what specific tasks, so things that are specific and measurable and so on, that could I do that would naturally make that client feel, oh, that's something above what I've actually signed up for. So when you specify what exceeding expectations looks like, then you've got that one extra task to do, and that saves you doing extra stuff that is wasted, in my opinion. So that's the way I'd handle that. But great question. Last question here from Michael Getty. Richard, how do you define the difference between an objective and a goal? I think I covered this at the start, but just to be clear, an objective is a stepping stone on the way to achieving an outcome or a goal. Simple as that. So an objective is one of the steps I might need to take to get in the direction of the goal, and the goal is the ultimate thing being completed. To get to a goal, I typically have to go through objectives. And I remember it was 2014 into 15 when I started building the 8-step startup course. It's now defunct. I kind of changed things a long time ago, but I built this course, and the idea was I was getting insights from professors of business schools, best-selling authors, and business leaders. And one of the first people I engaged with was called Sir Andrew Lykerman. So he's the Dean of London Business School, a very prestigious business school here in the UK. And he said, I was talking to him about this kind of thing. He said, Richard, the main thing is to make sure you have goals, sure, but also objectives and milestones predefined along the way if you're a startup or an entrepreneur, to make sure you have that kind of thing in place. And I think that's a really important way of looking at it, because if you If you don't have that, and you kind of muddle along feeling like you're getting towards an outcome or a goal, but you're not having those definite steps being taken. So that's important to do. And so, you know, my goal might be get 5 new customers, okay? But the objectives would be something like pitch 50 people a day in order to get to the goal of 5 new customers. So that's one of the objectives. It's like a key performance indicator, if you like. So having that in mind, it means I know what I'm doing. I just want to shout out to people who joined in on Instagram as well. So Neve Slama, nice to see you here. Hello. Ritu, City Boy fan page. I think I've been to your website before, actually. JD, nice to see you. Jasco9494, hello. Rateker Sings here. Nice to see you too. You're always showing up for me, so thank you. Mary the Cat 77. That's awesome, man. Shapire 3752 and Sayanda, hello. So many people there. Thanks for joining us. And also thanks for joining on Facebook as well. A shorter one today. What have we done? Probably something in the region of, yeah, so 35, 40 minutes. I want to leave it there. There's so much to do. I'm kind of cramming most of the week into today. Any more questions, let me know on objectives. But otherwise, thank you. Massive, massive thank you. Because there is an appetite for this every week, because you actually ask questions, but also bother to show up, I'm doing this every single week for you. So thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. One of my favorite times of the week is answering your questions. Thank you to Adam, Bernadette, Daniel, and Michael in particular for those questions that kicked it off. But otherwise, have an awesome day. Make sure, if you are not in the Entrepreneur Business Group on Facebook, you go to Facebook now, type in the search bar Entrepreneur Business Group, or go to facebook.com/groups/Entrepreneur Business Group and join. Fill out the questions, by the way. If you don't answer the questions, you instantly don't get in. So answer questions. If you write yes, yes, yes for the answers, you don't get in. Give us a meaningful answer just to make sure we don't have, you know, people who don't care in there. So it's 3,500 people in that group. I'll be streaming the speakers. So Judy Fox, myself, and Kurt Mercadante on Thursdays live from New York for Entrepreneur Business Live USA, talking about content creation. So please join us there. It'll be really good to see you. And in the meantime, have a great week. And I'll catch up with you really soon. So thanks very much for joining us over on Instagram. Thanks also for joining us on Facebook as well, and on